This is Reaching the Finish Line, and I'm your host, Callan Diggs. Check out the website, www.reachingthefinishline.com, and pick up my free report. Save up to 75%. What they don't want you to know. ReachingTheFinishLine.com. And welcome. Today I am delighted to have Tucker Max. Maximum Magazine says he's the most hated man on the internet. Tucker is the co-founder and chairman of Book in the Box, a company that turns ideas into books. He's also written 3 New York Times bestsellers, including the #1 bestseller, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. His books have sold over 3 million copies, been translated in over 30 languages, and are credited with creating the literary genre fratire. His #1 bestseller, I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, was also turned into a movie, and Time Magazine has nominated him as one of the 100 most influential people. Tucker, welcome.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Great. So Tucker, if you can give people, to summarize, kind of, what was the process that led you up to writing I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell?
It wasn't really a process, man. I kind of just stumbled into it. Basically, I was, after I graduated from law school, my friends and I all moved to different cities, and I hated my job and I hated my life, and so I just wrote emails to my friends about all the stupid, ridiculous, drunken things that I've done, and those emails were pretty funny, and so they forwarded them to their friends, and they just kind of blew up and became this thing that eventually turned into my book.
Great. So I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. Was that something that you self-published or traditionally published?
No, it's it is traditionally published, but with a small publisher. It's closer to self than traditional, but it is still technically traditional.
I see. So, how long did it take? Because we looked at Jack Canfield's story, and it took Jack Canfield a year to become a New York Times bestseller. How long did it take for I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell to get on a New York Times list?
It actually was on the list when it launched. Because I had already built up a mailing list. I already had a group of people who wanted my book and were excited to have it. So that was not really a problem. My book launched at number, I think, 26, which is not very high up, but it is still on the list. And then it hit 34 the next week, and then it fell off. And it was off for maybe 18 months, and then it went back on. It stayed on for 5 years, I think.
Great. So it made it on the list, and then you said it went back on. What were some things that you did, Tucker, to influence the book to get back on the list, being #1, and essentially staying on there for 5 years?
Man, I wish I could give you all these cool little marketing techniques, and I did a bunch of things, but the quite honest answer is I don't think any of those things made a difference. I think the reason that the book did really well is because it was good.
Right.
Because people, and I define good as people enjoy reading it, and what happens when someone enjoys reading something is you recommend it to other people, and that's how my book spread, word of mouth, dude, straight word of mouth, and there's really, at this point in the history of the world, there's pretty much no other marketing that works, at least, besides word of mouth. And so everything you do should be about building word of mouth and creating it, which means the way you conceptualize your stuff has to be why will someone care? Why are they going to talk about it? Why are they going to spread it? Sort of, et cetera, et cetera.
That's good, Tucker. And we can take that in 2 directions. Let's go to the first direction. You talk about the importance of writing a good book. Now, a lot of times, unfortunately, people have their own definition of good. People may, they may have this book that's passion to their heart, and maybe they spend so much time writing, and they can say, "This is a good book," and it's good because I think it's good, my mother think it's good, or my friend think it's good. So in their mind, it's a good book. How would Tucker classify a good book?
A good book is a book that other people want to read. That's it. That's what a good book is. Look, I'm not going to put down someone's desire to write something that's meaningful to them and to define it under their terms. That's totally legitimate, but that has a different name than book. It's called a diary.
Right.
And diaries are great, but you don't publish diaries. So if what you want to write is about defining, if you want to define what you write by your own terms, totally fine, but don't expect it to do well. If good in the context of a book is only defined as, do other people like this and take value from it, and are they talking about it to their friends? That's it. It's sort of like think about it like food.
Right.
You may cook something that you think is amazing, and it can be good for you, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But you want to be a chef at a restaurant, you got to cook things that other people like.
Indeed.
Because that's the job.
Absolutely. And the other direction you talked about, and you just mentioned shortly, was word of mouth marketing, and I think that's very important. And obviously, that's what was a big factor to the success of your book. Now, perhaps, obviously, everyone maybe has their own way, but what would you recommend? Would you recommend kind of focusing on it online as far as word of mouth marketing, Tucker, or would you say perhaps, combining it offline would be just as good as well?
I don't really differentiate between the two.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean you can't differentiate between the two. There are a lot of people who are very good at. I'm not going to pretend like the way things spread in person is different or is the same as the way they spread online, because it's not exactly the same. But that's not really my level of expertise, and so I don't want to talk a bunch of nonsense about stuff I don't really know.
Absolutely.
But instead, what I'll tell you is I feel like if you really, the best strategy for most people is to just focus on quality, and quality being defined as, is this actually meeting someone's need? Is this actually providing value to someone? If you focus on that, it's really only the last 10 to 20% that matters for online versus offline. The fundamentals are the quality of the product, right?
Right.
So look, if you're writing a blog post, and you need people to share it on Facebook and Twitter, there is a science to that is different than someone talking about a book to their friend at a cocktail party.
Indeed.
They're not fundamentally different. At the end of the day, they're still about people wanting to share things with other people to make them look better, but how they share and how they talk about it, whatever, can vary at the margins. So if that's important to you, you should study it. But I'm telling you, very few people are so good at content that they need to study the margins. Most people need to study the fundamentals, and the fundamentals are very simple. You need to write things that are relevant and to people and interesting. That's the fundamental aspect of people sharing what you do.
Well said. Let's talk about the inspiration for the second book.
Which one? Assholes Finish First?
Yes.
I mean, it was the same as the first. At that point, once you have something that works, there's no reason to fix. I don't fix things that aren't broken. I honestly, I just had more things to say.
Right.
I Hope to Serve Beer in Hell, Assholes Finish First, and Hilarity Ensues were just all a continuation of the same theme and same ideas.
Great. And obviously, you just essentially duplicate the process for those to become New York Times bestsellers as well. Now, this is a question everyone probably wants to hear. And what does it take for someone to get on a list like the New York Times bestseller? Because a lot of people say it is game, it's rigged. People are paying to get on these lists. Perhaps you can kind of shed some light on that.
Yeah, I mean, they are. there's companies like Result Source and others that essentially you pay them $250,000 and they order copies of your book from independent bookstores all around the country, and so it looks like your book is selling more than it actually is. It absolutely is rigged, 100%. And that's just the author rigging the system. The New York Times itself is pretty bankrupt. Like the name bestseller list is actually a lie, because no bestseller list actually measures the best-selling books. What they measure are the books that are selling in certain outlets that they track and they care about.
Yeah.
And so so the New York Times, at any given, I can't tell you, every single week you can go on BookScan, which is Nielsen's sort of data collection service that tracks about 80% of books that are sold. And you can look at the actual books that are selling and compare that to the New York Times list. Not only will there be a bunch of books that are selling a lot of copies that are not anywhere on the list, but the order of the books will be weird and altered and not be reflective of actual sales. So the New York Times list is basically just what the New York Times wants to promote, not what's actually selling.
Yeah, yeah. In the public domain, when someone hears that, oh, that person's a New York Times bestseller, it still kind of gives off that credibility, that prestige. It makes the author looks, I guess, much bigger than he is. Even though, as you stated, and you also stated in your HuffPost articles, that the game is rigged, and anyone could buy their way onto the list. Start with a free audiobook. Go to reachingthefinishline.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to click on the Audible banner to get your free audiobook. You may not have a lot of free time, but you can definitely listen to a book on a plane, on the bus, or even while you're driving. Go to reachingthefinishline.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to click on the Audible banner to get your free audiobook. Start reaching the finish line with your free audiobook. I want you to talk about perhaps the mentality on why someone will pay
status.
Yes, the status. Thank you for correcting.
Right. No, that's it. That's why. Because people, it's why does anyone go after any ribbon or any trophy or anything like that? Because, look, this is one of those things that are sort of like explaining to a fish that's swimming in water. It's sort of hard to see for people. Almost everything that people do is either about defining what tribe they're a member of or defining their status within that tribe. And everyone wants to be in the best, coolest tribes, and everyone wants to have high status in those tribes. And being an author is seen as very high status, a very high status tribe, and then being a New York Times best-selling author is high status within that tribe. And so anytime there's any measurement of anything, and the reward is worthwhile, people are going to try and game it. And they just game that system. And I mean, it's funny because I benefit from that status, but I'll be the first one to tell you it's mostly bullshit. It just is, man. The way that they count that list is bullshit, and it shouldn't be a marker of status. But it's like one of those accepted lies that people just say, oh, yeah, well, I know it's bullshit, but I still care, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think the reason why people still care, because obviously the majority of people do not know what we know. Do not know what you know, Max, about the game system. So that's why people. That's why a lot of times people they do it because they know what? What's that,
dude? I'm going to tell you, I don't necessarily think that's true. As much as your assumption is that people are rational and that if they only knew the game was rigged, then they would stop caring. But the reality is most people, at least most people who are operating in that world, know the game is rigged.
Right.
And they still participate because that's the way that people are. I'll give you a great example. Look at politics right now. You have on one side, you have Orange Hitler, and on the other side, you have Grandma Nixon. You've got literally two, seriously, we have two people who are both 70 years old or older, who are both have long, extended, multi-decade track records of being terrible people who are totally corrupt at all levels. They're both just miserably awful, both of them. Indefensible. But what happens is, look at, like, if you criticize Trump, who likes Trump will say, well, Hillary's worse, right? And if I were to criticize Hillary, someone who likes Hillary would be like, well, Trump's Hitler, you know? And so it's like, I don't even disagree with either of those positions, but people feel this deep-seated need to be part of a joint side. Humans, almost by definition, find it impossible to not pick a side. And so, like, the New York Times list is one of those things where it's like, well, if that's not measuring status, how are we going to measure status? So everyone plays the game, you know? But if you talk to people individually and just rationally go through Clinton and Trump, whatever side they're on, they'll be like, yeah, this person, whatever, candidate X is terrible. They recognize that, but they can't. That's rational. Most people operate emotionally and instinctually, not rationally. The rational is just a facade on top of that.
I love that analogy, and you know, I'm very much of the same mindset. I mean, I haven't voted in like years, so I don't. They're both corrupt. but yeah, it's refreshing to hear another person kind of underline that. What do you think about the Wall Street Journal and the U.S. Today bestseller list? Are they rigged too, or are they more honest?
They are a little bit. They're a little bit more honest, just because the Wall Street Journal is not like a intellectual status rag; it's a business status rag. So they don't care who they care more about, like Fortune 500, like company rankings, stock price. Really care about books. That's just kind of in there as a service. And USA Today is sort of the same way. It's more of a publicity rag. It's not really focused on books. So those two lists usually take all of their cues from Nielsen, and they don't manipulate the list the same way that the New York Times does, because the New York Times is speaking to a different audience.
I see.
People who are intellectuals or pseudo-intellectuals who want to signal that they're important and their ideas are important, so they only want to hear about, and I say this in quotes, important books. Whereas that's just not as relevant to the Wall Street Journal or USA Today.
Want the full episode? You can get it, among other benefits, when you become our premium radio subscriber. Go to patreon.com/Callen. That's patreon.com/KALLEN. When you go to patreon.com/Callen, choose one of the premium subscription levels, for it's just another tool to help you reach your finish line. Great, yeah, that's definitely one of my mission. One of my goals is, you know, hopefully get on one of those. Well, I don't really care about the New York Times bestseller list. You know, I agree with you. It's rigged, and honestly, I don't think it's worth the effort to try to get on that list. But I do have the goal, and hoping to get on either the Wall Street Journal bestseller list or the USA Today bestseller list. My first book, this is my only book right now, but it has sold well, but it didn't sell enough copies in a separate week to get on the list. So, so yeah, that's something.
There's so many books like that, dude. James Altucher's book, Choose Yourself, has sold 600,000 copies and has never been on the New York Times bestseller list. I'll give you an even better example. Man's Search for Meaning, the book by Viktor Frankl, like one of the guys who survived the concentration camps, has sold 10 million copies, and his book has never been on a bestseller list.
Wow.
That's nonsense. It's just nonsense.
It is.
You know, like it's just proof that the lists are. And I'm sitting here as a beneficial, you know, someone who's benefited greatly from being on these lists, but they're just kind of bullshit. You know.
Right. No, I'm with you, Tucker. So, what inspired you to create Book in a Box, your own publishing company in a sense that helps authors? What was the inspiration behind that?
Basically, it was. I mean, I wish I could tell you like I was some genius who figured this out, but I was basically I was at an entrepreneur meeting, like a dinner, and this woman, this great entrepreneur, she told me she had an idea for a book for 10 years, and people have been asking her to write it for 10 years, and she didn't have the time to do it or the desire to learn how to write a book. And she's like, how can I get this idea out of my head and into a book without having to go through all that. And I made fun of her for like thinking that there was a different way to write a book other than writing. And she called me out. She's like, look, you shouldn't be at an entrepreneur dinner unless you're going to help me solve my problem. Otherwise, you're just a fraud. And I was like, all right, well, let's look at this. So I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I realized that she was totally right. That some of the best books in history were not written down by the people whose ideas they were. For example, Socrates never wrote a word down. Jesus Christ never wrote a word down. Buddha never wrote a word down. Malcolm X never wrote anything down. Like all these people, their ideas are in books because scribes wrote their ideas and their actual words down. And I was like, well, if Jesus can do it, why can't Melissa? And so I kind of constructed a process where I would interview her in a very structured way and then turn her ideas and her words and her voice into a book. So it wouldn't be ghostwriting, it would be her. And lo and behold, it worked. And I kind of talked about this on a podcast, and it blew up, and we ended up getting all these clients, and then it just kind of became the company that we have now. So like, our process is, not cheap. It costs $20,000 to get us to do it. But you can get the book for free. Like all you have to do, it's on Amazon. It's called the Book in a Box Method. You can buy it for whatever it is, $5 or $2, or just go to bookinabox.com /book, and it'll take you to a landing page where you can download a PDF of the book for free. If you want to write a book, you can absolutely do it by yourself. Just follow the method, step by step. It absolutely works. We've done it with 300 books so far.
Great. And if people want to contact you directly about, something else, I guess they could contact tuckermax.me?
No, go to just Tucker at bookinabox.com is my email.
Okay, very good. Hey, Tucker, thank you for being our guest.
Of course, man. Thank you, brother.
Thank you for listening. Just another great episode by Callan Diggs, best-selling author and career strategist, as seen in Fast Company and Inc. magazine. If you're not on an email list, you're missing out. Go to reachingthefinishline.com and subscribe to get all the exclusives.